Hi everyone, this is Chad from Influitive, and today we're going to cover challenge points and best practices around that. We're going to cover three different areas here. We're going to cover the default point structure and how to configure that. We'll also look at point ranges in terms of what the point ranges should be for certain challenges and guidance around that. And then we'll also look at some challenge best practices. So before we go in and we start talking about best practices and default point structure, let's look at one example of a challenge, and just so that we're all clear in terms of the terminology and how this impacts one area versus another. So in our challenges area, we'll scroll down here and we'll look at a particular challenge. We'll look at this Quora review challenge. So here we can see that this overall point value is 500 points. We'll go in, we'll edit the challenge, and we'll see that for each stage type, the point value is broken down across the different stage types. So in this area here, we're asking someone to actually provide the review. So that's worth the most points. Hopefully there'll be enough of a motivation to get someone to do that. Then we're going to ask them if they can share that particular review with others within the Advocate Hub. So that'd be kind of neat for others to see and perhaps comment on. And then the last step here is giving someone the rest of the points, and it's called a corporate workflow step, where we actually review that the challenge is actually a good one. And because if it's not, then what we can do is we can actually reject the completion of this challenge and not give them any additional points and actually ask them to redo it. So that'll give you a few ideas around the different stage types that we have, as well as why there may be some variability in terms of what you actually assign point values to for each of the different stage types. So let's go in and now adjust the default point structure. So under our name here, we go to Settings, and then under Scoring and Achievements, we go to Default Point Structure. So the reason why we're going to configure this area is when you actually create a challenge and you add the stage type, it will assign a default point value to that stage type. So it's nice when this is configured and it's kind of optimally configured so that it's easier for you when you're creating your challenges just to use that default points that are associated to that stage type. We would always assume that you may need to adjust that, and we actually allow for that, but if this is set up properly, it may be easier for you when you're creating your stages. So as we go through here, the simple ones, I don't really think they need to be adjusted. I think 25 points is fine. We look at the moderate challenge stage types. There's a little bit more things that we need to do here, I would say. I think blog comments are okay. I might adjust those down slightly to the 200 mark where you're asking someone to comment on a blog. It just depends how important that blog post is. In terms of completing an online action, I would actually reduce that down to 100, because what you're doing here is you're asking someone to go to a web page. You may just be asking them to go and check out a new blog post or some sort of educational materials. In other cases, you may be actually asking them to do something specific on that web page. But for the most part, this is used with other areas and other stage types. And I would start with a default point range of something that's in the lower range. And if you need to adjust that, you can do that on the specific challenge. I think completed review is fine. I think image upload is okay at 300. I would say that LinkedIn product recommendation is also good at 500, and that's consistent with the other review challenge type. Link shared, I would probably put that down to 100. I mean, really all you're asking someone to do is to share a link across their different social media networks. Again, you may want to increase it based on the importance of that link that they're sharing. Net promoter score is good. Question and answers, I would probably reduce that. I think I'd put that at the 200 mark, because this is used for multiple purposes, and it may be something that's worth more if it's a longer survey. But again, you can adjust upwards. I think it's easier to adjust upwards than downwards. It's easier, to have something that's more in line with the typical scenarios that you're going to run through. Salesforce App Exchange, I think, is fine. That's consistent with other reviews. Tweeted, I would put this down low to 100, because again, all you're asking someone to do here is to tweet. The last thing I would change here is referrals submitted. I'd probably put that down to more at the 2,000 range, because there is an area around actually submitting the referral but then you're going to probably add a corporate workflow step, just like we did in that Quora review challenge, and you're going to want to just maybe assign the points based on reviewing if that was actually a good referral, rather than assigning it all right away. So when we're all done here, we're going to save the changes, and we're done. So let's now talk about the challenge point ranges that you can do. So what we recommend that you use is our challenge and recognition planner. And so this is a spreadsheet that you can access through onboarding through Influitive. If you don't have access to it, just ask our magicians or your advocacy coach. What you'll do is you'll see two tabs here. There's the challenges that people use, as well as the recognition. The recognition tab is the one that we're interested in. So we've created an area here where you can review what are the sample points that people typically assign to specific types of challenges. And I recommend that you go in here and you perhaps plan out what you want to adjust and put a specific range for particular challenges, or even put what are the specific points you want to give for those challenges. There's a lot of variability here. So for example, a case study we see here, it says here 500 to 3,000 points. Again, it all depends on how important this is to you. So you may assign points differently based on that. The referral is also a big point differentiator here. I mean, some people use the referral stage type as a means to just ask advocates if they have people that they know that like to join the hub. Others have very time-sensitive campaigns where you're trying to get a number of referrals within, say, a specific period, and they're going to really up the ante on the number of points, and that's why you see a kind of a wide range there. So go through here and use this as a guide as you're assigning the point values to your particular challenges. So the last area we're going to talk about is challenge points best practices. We've already talked about a few of them. So we talked about consistency of points. We've also talked about using the corporate workflow stage type. So in that scenario, especially if you have a referral, you may assign points to the actual referral stage type, but you may assign most of the points to the corporate workflow stage. So you just want to determine, what's the optimal way of assigning points for that particular challenge. And you may want to experiment as well. We found here that people like to get a lot more points right away. And so you may want to experiment with maybe decreasing the points for the corporate workflow and see if you get more challenge completions. But it's just something you want to keep in mind. The other thing that you want to do is you want to review your specific challenges, and you want to look at, say, your rewards, and you want to make sure that the challenges that you have in there and the points you've assigned to them, that someone can actually redeem the rewards. So if you look at all your challenges, you add up all the points, and it doesn't actually even, you can't even redeem any reward, then that could be a potential issue, and it could be a potential demotivator for your particular advocates. So that's something to keep in mind. I mean, if you plan to add more challenges in there so that someone can actually go and redeem it, that's fine, but you just need to keep that into consideration. Again, you also want to take into consideration how easy or difficult it is to complete the challenge, as well as how important it is to you to complete that challenge, and the time sensitivity around that challenge in terms of determining the point value for certain challenges. And the last thing you want to do is you want to think about, for that particular challenge, what is the actual value in terms of advocacy? And so what you can do is you can take a look at your rewards, and you can take a look at how much points are, say, associated to a particular reward. So if it's worth $25 and to redeem it as 1,000 points, and then for a Twitter challenge, we're asking someone to post something on Twitter, you've given the challenge stage 50 points. The value of actually doing that activity is worth $1. So you may want to consider actually increasing or decreasing certain challenge stages and the points associated to those challenges based on your perceived value of what they're actually doing. So for example, in a case study, you may want to give more points. So if I give this 33,000 points or 4,000 points, because we see the value of a case study being much higher, and we're okay with them actually redeeming a reward because it's really worth a lot of value to us. So I hope you found this really helpful in terms of the best practices, and I highly encourage you to go in make sure your challenges are adjusted correctly, and then check out some of these other great resources that we have that may be of value to you. Thank you very much.